What's going on, everybody? Russell Clay here for another video. Today, we're going to be looking at my top 5 favorite late round draft picks in 2023 best ball leagues, whether it's drafters, underdog, whatever you're looking at. I think I've found 5 players that are going to get you an advantage. If you do believe that and you find this information valuable, please give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. I'm a staff writer over at fantasyguru.com. You can definitely check out our 2023 draft guide as well. If you like this information, you're probably going to like what's over on the site. So without further ado, let's get into my top 5 favorite best ball late round draft picks for 2023. All right, let's take a look at the 5 players I'm drafting in fantasy football best ball leagues this offseason. I've done about, I'd say 30 or 40 drafts at this point, both on underdog and drafters. And I'm starting to get a pretty good read on who I'm going to be in on, at least with the current value ranges. And so let's just get right into number 1, Bryce Young. The first overall pick in the 2023 draft, he landed on the Carolina Panthers, which is, not a team that many are excited about for this year, and I can totally understand that. But I think they have some underrated weapons, at least from a floor perspective. When you look at Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, and then Hayden Hurst there. Also have an interesting running game with Miles Sanders. So I actually think Young's got a pretty high floor if he does start all year. And also, he's the number 1 pick. We're seeing Anthony Richardson go about 70 to 100 picks higher, depending on the draft. And while Richardson does have a much better situation, I think when you look at quarterbacks, especially from a year 1 perspective, 33% of quarterbacks drafted in the top 10 throw for 3,000 plus passing yards. I feel like in the 170s with the number 1 overall pick, you're taking a really good gamble here that Young can outproduce his current expectations. Number 1 picks especially, here's the 21 quarterbacks that have thrown for, 3,000 yards in their rookie year. 7 of them were number 1 picks. And then, you see some number 2 picks and number 3 picks, but 7 or 33% of those 21 were number 1 overall picks. I don't know that I believe Young is a long-term high-end starter, but Baker Mayfield's one of those guys. Kyler Murray's one of those guys. Sam Bradford's one of those guys. So, we're really taking no risk in the 170s. He's going well after everyone in that range, and we can throw C.J. Stroud in there as well, another guy I'm taking a gamble on here. So I think both those guys are fantastic values if you're looking for a quarterback late, especially if you're looking for a quarterback to team up with a Patrick Mahomes or something like that. I don't think you can get a better value right now. I know Young's small. I don't think he's even 194 pounds. But I don't think he's 6 feet either. But I do think he's talented. And in the short term for 1 year, I definitely think he can end the year as a top 15 fantasy quarterback. So I am buying. All right, let's move on. Tank Bigsby, 3rd round pick, lands on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is really going to need a Travis Etienne injury to truly emerge. But his price right now is pretty darn good. And I've got, as you can see, my top 2 guys are Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. And this is in drafters. I've done most of my drafting on underdog so far, but over the last couple weeks, I've started to dive into this drafters $20 entry here. So, in terms of Bigsby, though, really talented guy at Auburn, was a starter for all 3 years of his career, never really emerged into high end fantasy production because, Auburn was pretty horrible. offensively for most of his career. But the point is, lands in the third round. A guy that can be featured if need be. I think he's a great handcuff right now. When we look at running backs in their rookie year, third round picks, 13%, get 800 or 1,000 plus total yards in their rookie year. So, that doesn't sound like a high number, but when you think about it, that's probably 1 in 6, 1 in 7. So if you look at this crew, I kind of like all these guys this year. Kendre Miller, Tank Bigsby. We don't need Bigsby to get 1,000 yards for him to hit value this year. As long as he emerges into some type of goal line role, we can hit that way. Or if something happens to ETN, we can also hit big that way. There's not really much competition for touches for Bigsby behind ETN, and I think they did draft him for a reason. So Bigsby, talented guy, and can be that between the tackles grinder they need to fill that role. So I think it's going to be a really good Jaguars offense this year. I am buying Tank Bigsby. All right, as I showed you, Kendre Miller, another guy on that list, has Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams on that offense, but is a guy that I think is super talented. They drafted him in the third round for a reason. That's a pretty high investment when you consider the running back position. Miller was the main cog in this TCU offense last year and, really emerged in his final season. I would throw out there that he was kind of battling with some really highly touted, Zach Evans, really highly touted guy out of high school. So Zach Evans did end up transferring because I think he saw the writing on the wall that Miller was going to be starting over him in 2022. And highly explosive, big-bodied, 6 foot 220, and really fits the archetype of what we're looking for in these third-round picks, kind of hitting over the last couple years. I am buying where he is. I think he's a great RB4, and even if you want to stretch it to RB3, I think he can truly emerge over Jamal Williams. And if Alvin Kamara does come back and he's not quite the same, or he gets a lengthy suspension, we're still waiting on that. I think we could see nice returns, at least a couple weeks or maybe a couple months of Miller producing by the end of the year. So I think once they start to give him snaps, they're not going to be able to keep him off the field. So, all right, Kendre Miller. Now we're moving to a weirder one. So Michael Wilson, right? Not a guy many people are talking about right now. He is being drafted. Let's see. Where is that? He is being drafted, basically undrafted right now. ADP of 228.2. And I'm certainly not a guy who was very high on Michael Wilson out of Stanford. This is not a guy who was very productive throughout his career. He did have a nice sophomore season, producing, 672 yards on 56 receptions. Did emerge that year, but just has not played that much over the last couple years. But when you look closer at this number, though, you see 418 yards in 2022, but that was in 6 games, right? So he was, doing pretty well here from a production standpoint. In those games he did play this year, he did get drafted in the third round. And I think the most important factor here is that he got drafted to the Arizona Cardinals, who I think there's real tank potential with this team. They let go of DeAndre Hopkins, just freed him up. And, Marquise Brown already dealing with foot stuff. I think he's going to be fine. It doesn't sound serious, but he's had a tough time staying on the field. And we don't really have much behind Brown. And this is kind of a guy that I'd naturally look at on the depth chart and say, okay, so I'm not a huge Michael Wilson guy, but he might have a ton of opportunity by the end of this year. And, if Kyler Murray does or doesn't come back, I don't think the Cardinals are going to be very competitive towards the end of the year. If that is the case, they're really going to start to try to rebuild this roster. They're going to start to try to develop some of these young players. So by the end of the year, I think we could see Wilson kind of shifting into 40, 50, 60, 70% of those offensive snaps just to get him reps. And if he is good at all, or if he does start to see, a lot of targets, this is a guy that nobody's drafting right now. It's going to be a very interesting difference maker for you that is going to be unique. Now, he has had some positive reports, so we could see that ADP rise over the next couple years, but this is the type of guy I want to take a shot on. Again, third-round pick. We'll go take a look at that rookie year. We only get third-round picks really producing, high-end fantasy results in year one, about 1 in 20. So that's pretty low. But in terms of opportunity of the third round picks, I feel like he's got one of the best opportunities here. Josh Downs has Alec Pierce, Cedric Tillman has DPJ and Amari Cooper. Hyatt, has some messy depth charts to deal with right now. And Dell, we'll see about Dell. He's got some interesting opportunity there as well. Trey Tucker, I'm not quite sure on. So, Wilson's a guy I'm really honing in on as an opportunity to emerge, whether it's this offseason during training camp or preseason, or whether it's early to mid-year where the Cardinals are transitioning to a younger, let's develop our young guys perspective. So, all right, let's stick with the wide receivers. Marvin Mims, this is a guy I've talked about quite a bit already this year. He's got everything I look for in a prospect. Nice athletic testing, 4.38, 39.5 vertical. Speedster out of Oklahoma, really emerged as a true freshman and built from there. Caleb Williams left him in his final season, so I think his numbers could have been even better had that not happened. But as you can see, just an explosive deep threat. Has Sean Payton, has a Russell Wilson who had Tyler Lockett for the last decade, who he just threw moon balls up to. Mims is definitely in that Lockett tier from a deep target perspective. I think he can be more than that, but when you're looking at early career emergence, the way a lot of these young players emerge in their career, at least wide receiver, is what do you do well? Can that get you on the field in year one? And I think Mims has the skill set from a deep threat perspective to emerge in year one. Now, he does have KJ Hamler. He does have Cortland Sutton. He does have Tim Patrick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at this second round pick, these guys emerge, they do emerge 14% of the time. That's a pretty good percentage, for 800 yards in a rookie year. He doesn't need to do that to hit where he's being drafted. So, really cheap right now. He's a guy I'm drafting a ton of. Where's Marvin Mims? I guess not on drafters. I only got 23%. But on Underdog, I have much, much higher percentage. So, 168, I am reaching on him compared to ADP about 5 picks, but I'm not really worried about the talent there in Denver. I think there's a lot of injuries. I think opportunity is going to open up, even if it's not quite clear how it is going to open up yet for Marvin Mims. And he is a guy that we should get really excited about. So, again, the opportunity isn't clear yet, but I do think it is going to happen relatively quickly this year, whether it's due to injuries or Marvin Mims just being a special player on the practice field. So, all right, guys, this is the 5 players I'm drafting later on in best ball drafts right now. I have a few more you probably saw in some of my exposures. Maybe we'll talk about those in future weeks. I thank you all for tuning in. As I mentioned at the top, please subscribe to the channel. And if you found this video informative, please give it a like and maybe throw a comment in there. Who who are the players that are, you're drafting in best ball drafts right now. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.